Wrestling Pro News family, buckle up because this is one of the most shocking, jaw-dropping, and downright brutal sagas that has ever come out of the WWE Universe. A story that is spreading across the wrestling world like wildfire and leaving fans, insiders, and superstars alike with chills running down their spines. Because what we are about to dive into is not just another headline or storyline. This is a generational statement of vengeance, loyalty, and destruction that has redefined what it means to cross the bloodline. Samoan justice has been served in the most savage way possible, and it is Jacob Fatu who has emerged as the executioner of that justice, a man who has shown the world that if you thought the bloodline was fractured, weakened, or vulnerable after Roman Reigns was hospitalized in Paris, you could not have been more wrong, because what followed was nothing short of a declaration of war written in broken bones and spilled blood. Before we unravel every detail of this terrifying act of vengeance, make sure you smash that subscribe button, ring the notification bell, and stay tuned, because the tribal combat Samoan has spoken in a language that only warriors understand, and it is a message that is echoed through every locker room, every arena, and every corner of WWE. Let's go back to Clash in Paris, a night that was supposed to be another shining chapter in Roman Reigns' legendary career. A night where the head of the table walked into La Defense Arena, ready to silence his critics, conquer Bronson Reed, and prove once again why he is the tribal chief who carries the company on his shoulders. The match itself was brutal, a clash of power, grit, and raw intensity, and when Roman stood victorious in front of over 20,000 fans chanting his name, it felt like another moment of triumph had been secured for the dynasty. But victory turned to nightmare in an instant, as Bronson Reed and Bron, unwilling to accept defeat, orchestrated one of the most cowardly and calculated post-match assaults in WWE history. The images are seared into the minds of every fan who watched it live. Reed climbing the ropes to deliver his monstrous tsunami splash to Roman's already battered ribs, followed by Breakker exploding with a spear that sent the tribal chief crashing into the barricade with a force that left the arena in stunned silence. When Roman was stretchered out of Paris, his body broken, his ribs fractured, and his reign hanging by a thread, it was not just an injury report, it was an attack on the very soul of the bloodline, and for Jacob Fatu, that was an act that demanded consequences of the highest order. Sources backstage described Fatu as a man transformed after that night, pacing the corridors of WWE like a predator circling prey, his eyes burning with ancestral rage, his mind consumed not by if, but by how he would strike back. This was not just about professional wrestling anymore. This was about family honor, about Samoan pride, about the unbreakable code that has guided generations of warriors. For days, Jacob reportedly studied the security footage of the Paris ambush, replaying every second of how Reed and Breakker dismantled Roman, memorizing every detail as if engraving their sins into his soul, and quietly he began planning their downfall with the precision of a hunter preparing for the ultimate kill. He told Solo Sikoa in chilling words, "They put Roman in the hospital. I'm going to make them feel that pain multiplied by 1,000, and everyone who heard him knew those weren't empty threats. They were a death sentence." The first strike came at the WWE Performance Center, where Bronson Reed thought he was enjoying an ordinary training session, but what unfolded was anything but routine. Wrestlers described an eerie stillness that filled the gym, a tension so heavy it felt like the calm before a natural disaster, and then from the shadows Jacob Fatu appeared, his eyes blazing with fury, his body moving like a force of nature unleashed. Within moments, Reed was being torn apart in a systematic dismantling that mirrored every ounce of pain Roman endured in Paris. Fatu targeted the ribs mercilessly, delivering crushing knee strikes, savage elbow drops, and devastating Samoan drops on the concrete floor, screaming with every blow, "This is for Roman. This is for Paris," until Reed lay broken and convulsing on the floor. The final Samoan spike silenced the room, leaving Reed unconscious as medical teams rushed in, and as he was stretchered out, Jacob Fatu stood over him, declaring with icy calm, "One down, one to go." But the hunt wasn't over. Hours later, Bron became the second target, and his punishment was even more terrifying. Breakker, shaken by news of Reed's destruction, tried to escape in the quiet shadows of his hotel parking garage, but the echo of footsteps behind him told him fate had caught up. He turned, and there stood Fatu, bloodied knuckles, torn clothes, eyes burning with unfinished Samoan business. "You helped destroy my tribal chief in Paris. Now you face the consequences," Fatu said in a voice cold enough to freeze hell itself, and what followed was an onslaught so savage it will be whispered about in WWE history for decades. Superkicks sent breakers smashing through car windows, alarms blaring in a chaotic symphony of destruction. Samoan drops on concrete cracked the air with thunderous impact, and each move was punctuated with screams of, "This is for Roman's broken ribs. This is for disrespecting the bloodline. This is for Paris." The finale was a barrage of Samoan spikes that left Breaker bloodied and unconscious on the cold floor, his body as broken as Roman's had been in Paris, but magnified tenfold. By the time both Reed and Breaker were rushed to hospitals, Jacob Fatu had walked away with the calm satisfaction of a man who had balanced the scales. Backstage, the bloodline erupted with respect and approval, with Solo Sikoa declaring that Jacob had done what any brother would have done. Roman, despite his pain, was said to be deeply moved, proud that Fatu had stood as the warrior who avenged the family. And the sight of both attackers from Paris now lying in hospital beds was nothing short of poetic justice, a message to the entire WWE roster that when you attack the bloodline, you don't just attack one man, you awaken an army. Wrestling wild cards, what Jacob Fatu did was more than revenge. It was a declaration that the bloodline is untouchable, a family bound by loyalty, tradition, and a code that will never allow disrespect to go unanswered. The image of Fatu standing over his enemies, clad in bloodline colors, has already become iconic, symbolizing family, honor, and Samoan justice at its most ruthless. Now the entire WWE Universe is left asking, was Jacob Fatu justified in his brutal actions, or did he go too far? Was this pure vengeance? Or was this the only way to remind the world that the bloodline is not just a faction but a dynasty that defends itself with fire and fury? Drop your thoughts down below. Smash that like button if you respect loyalty, honor, and Samoan justice, and make sure you subscribe with notifications on, because the Bloodline saga is far from over, and if this chapter was written in broken bones, the next one promises to be even more explosive and unforgettable. Welcome back to Wrestling Pro News, the home of shocking updates, untold stories, and everything that shakes the WWE Universe to its core. Wrestling wild cards, Samoan justice has been served in the most brutal way imaginable. If you believed for a second that Jacob